Welcome to another Satanic Essay Reading and discussion, but this time I've got a fantastic guest, Ara. How are you, my dear?
I'm well. And yourself?
I am scattered as fuck, but
It's okay.
but you're looking smashing. You look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
You've got
And you as well.
yeah,
You always do.
You're just showing me up is all you do. You're like, oh, he thinks he look good. Just wait. Well, I'm surprised we got some people in chat. Usually these are pretty quiet affairs. Joaquim, always great to see you. Congratulations on the metric tons of alcohol and, more importantly, the celebration of your success. Congratulations, man. Norn Ironblock. I was going to actually text you today. Wes, always great to see you. So, I'm hoping you guys are going to be contributing to this chat because this is going to be a good one. And hopefully we can find some sort of third side perspective to all of this. But you're going to be performing the reading. So why don't you tell the good folks what you're going to be reading?
I am reading the Fascism Question today.
Why this essay?
I think it really plays in today's day and age, especially with midterms coming around, keeping things in perspective. There's a lot of the alt-right and Antifa, and I think it's the same coin, just different sides. And this plays right into that. He's speaking directly about what we're seeing play out in society.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, if everyone doesn't know, this is from Magus Peter H. Gilmore's The Satanic Scriptures. If you do not have a copy yet, you're missing out. I mean, there's a lot of really wonderful wit and wisdom contained in here, but also some pretty fantastic rituals. So just for that alone, I think it's worth the price of admission. However, as I mentioned before, Ara, you're going to be performing this reading. So you ready for this?
I am.
Let's do it.
The Church of Satan does not dictate the politics of its members, and they have always been free to choose whatever suits their personal needs, pragmatism being the guiding factor. Our members generally promote the idea that their nation of residence should move towards a secular, pluralist society in which people are free to participate in any religion or philosophy of choice, and that the adherents of these myriad alternatives agree not to coerce others, either through force or through legislation of their religiously derived moralities. The mechanisms of local politics is employed on the basis of what will bring the most personal benefits to the Satanist and the people and goals he cherishes. Those outside the Church of Satan have, from its inception, accused it of all manners of politics: communism, fascism, anarchism, liberalism, conservatism, and just about anything else you can think of, all of which are mutually exclusive. What is clear is that journalists who have an axe to grind against the Church of Satan have always accused it of advocating a political system which is one they personally abhor, thus casting the Church of Satan in the role of devil for them in whatever arena of human thought they wish to explore. In the 1960s, the radical left preached a philosophy of peace and love, which really boiled down to the concept of leveling everything to being equal. This philosophy championed the abandoning of rational criteria for evaluation of anything, and the embracing of everything as being of equal value, thus fostering mediocrity on every level of human endeavor. We are still living in this fallout of this mode of thinking, as the people who espoused these ideas when young have grown to adulthood and are now the establishment, those adults whom they considered to be the enemy during the 60s. This egalitarianism was manifested in cultural domains with concepts such as anything can be defined as being art, and all such works must be considered to have equal validity. Thus, some random splashes on a canvas were considered an equal achievement to the Sistine Chapel. A mud hut was held up as being equal to Versailles. A janitor was dubbed the equivalent to a physicist. A novelist was now the peer of one who scrawled graffiti on bathroom walls. This principle of indiscrimination was applied to all other fields of achievement. Those who opposed this leveling were accused of being fascist or Nazis, without regard for what those terms might have meant in their actual historical origins and practice. After all, it was the mid-60s, 20 years after the ending of a war, that most of these folks weren't even alive to have experienced. How quickly past orthodoxies are forgotten. The Church of Satan was created in 1966 and stood in contradistinction to these ideas, which were generally being defined as being liberal. From the time of the very foundation of the organization, Anton LaVey and the members of the Church of Satan were appalled at this ideology, which preached that any kind of merit was illusory, and thus the act of evaluation was an evil practice. Discrimination became a bad word, when previously it had denoted sound judgment. Well, the Church of Satan never shied away from embracing things that society considered evil, and thus it championed a rebirth of strict criteria for evaluation of all areas of human endeavor, and quite radically placed the responsibility for this squarely on the shoulders of each individual. There was no appeal to authority in Satanism, since each person held the responsibility for being his own authority. For this reason, we were then called fascists and Nazis, not because of any advocacy of the socio-political ends of these historical movements. The masses today still don't know what the term Nazi and fascist really mean in their original sense. These words are now used as epithets against anyone with whom they don't agree. Most frequently, they are employed by politically correct intellects in the same manner that Joe McCarthy used the word communist and the Christian inquisitors used the word witch to discredit the validity of the accused's point of view and brand them a heretic or thought criminal. Because of the continuing decline in the level of education, even amongst those who pursue degrees at major universities, we can expect that there will be no broad understanding of what the term Nazi and fascist really mean, now or for some time to come. These will simply remain vague derogatory designations used against those perceived to be the bad guys. Satanists are aware of what impact words and images have on the herd, and thus use them to their advantage. It should be clear to anyone who has observed human society that there is an all-pervading interest on the part of the contemporary general public in the Third Reich. Anyone with cable television or who happens to visit movie theaters will see that Nazis are the standard archetype in entertainment for what the masses deem to be evil, and they are fascinated with this dead government and fetishize it to no end. Do you watch the History Channel, whose emblem is a carved angular letter H? We jokingly say that this really stands for Hitler, not history, as much of their programming concerns analysis of the Third Reich. The herd's misconceptions establish how a Satanist uses symbols to influence these people. Would-be iconoclasts today who try to reclaim the swastika as a symbol have failed to supplant the herd's identification of this as a sign of ultimate evil, far more potent to them than our sigil of Baphomet. When dealing with mass consciousness, current meanings establish buttons that can be pushed. Certain savvy Satanists who make their living entertaining the masses have used the public's obsession with this material for their own ends. Hence, they have employed symbols and techniques derived from the Third Reich spectacles, which were undeniably powerful means for motivating masses of people for the purpose of stimulating their audiences and thus putting money in their pockets. Is this advocating political fascism? No, of course not. Fascism is a doctrine that requires the submission of individuals to the goals of the state. This is a collectivist philosophy, suppressing individualism, which states that each person should sacrifice himself to an abstract principle, which is treated as a sacred entity, the state. The past supposed glories of the state, usually mythological, become the sacred icons in what is in actuality a new religion. Fascism is clearly a means for controlling herds, and one that is effective. It took one of the largest wars to end the bid for world dominance by nations using this system. The sameness of the masses serving the state is the common ideology for unification of the populace. Such is the favorite tools for totalitarians, whether they are called fascists or clergy or commissars. Hence, uniform modes of dress are frequent tools to bond the populace together. Satanists advocate a different approach. Stratification is a term coined by Anton LaVey to signify how nature allows everything to seek its own level. It's not something that need be advocated. It happens of its own accord. Social orders are human constructs, artificial in nature. We Satanists think one were to apply nature's principles to a society, in this context, stratification would then be the concept that one's merit, evidenced by developed talent and productivity, decides one's position in society. That position could change depending upon the shifting matrix of societal values for your abilities. Individuality is thus championed, and there will be a flux in class status rather than an imposed stasis, creating a frozen hierarchy of hereditary aristocrats. This was not the goal of the German fascists of the Third Reich. Their standards were racist. They sought political power and needed a scapegoat for the economic woes of the many. They chose the Jews, since many were economically successful as well as skilled arts practitioners. And Nazi propagandists galvanized much of the populace into following them through hatred of people they branded sedacious monsters. They also targeted communists, who they felt were enemies to their system of National Socialism. Once the Nazis took power, their first order of business was to imprison political enemies, many of whom were communists. These were the people first incarcerated in concentration camps. However, the need to continue identifying enemies, denigrating groups of people so that Aryans could feel superior, led to the imprisonment and extermination of Jews, along with gypsies and even homosexuals. Despite the homophile proclivities of some leading Nazis, they too were purged. Decadent was the smear used against them, while the Nazis assumed the mantle of moral and aesthetic purity. When fascist doctrine is placed into practice, regardless of where or when, there has to be somebody who tells the herd what the needs of the state are to be, since the state is just an abstraction. It does not actually exist. Here enters the ruling class, otherwise known as the Nazi Party, the Communist Party, the Khmer Rouge, and so on. These rulers claim to embody the state, telling the masses what the will of the state is. They reign much like the ancient priesthoods, who held their power by being the only ones capable of communicating to people the will of the gods. These people are a de facto aristocracy, using the state for its raison d'etre, just as the latter-day heads of some of the communist states handed down the will of the people, as their excuse for controlling their mass subjects. These rulers are not subject to sacrificing themselves to the state, because they are the ones who, as embodiments of the state, choose who is to become sacrificed. They don't pick themselves, though sometimes they do pick their cohorts who are getting a bit too cocky. These kinds of rulers are now using terms more palatable to our century, whose masses won't buy such old excuses as the divine right of kings, but their means are identical. Of course, these rulers are often foiled by subsequent prophets, who convince the masses that they, rather than the current rulers, embody the state. And so counter-revolutions occur, and the former leaders are usually dispatched with violence. "Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain," said the glowering face in a fountain of fire. The state, the will of the people, hoping that Dorothy and crew wouldn't notice who really is pulling the strings. But Toto, the beast, pulled aside the curtain. Now we might begin to see how Satanists factor in to this equation. The Satanist should always be aware of who is really running the situation in which he finds himself. The clever know the ropes of the system in which they live and use that to their advantage. Satanists do not see themselves as being part of the herd and naturally resist any attempts to be forced to live under any regimes that would make them part of the controlled masses. However, Satanists may not care how the herd is being controlled, so long as they themselves aren't subject to being controlled along with them. If forced by circumstance to be part of such a governmental situation, and I caution the reader to examine how much he really knows about the machinations of his current nation of residents. The clever Satanist would either attempt to be the person who pulls the strings, or more likely, his associate. Being the one behind a leader is generally a safer position, as the leader is always a target, while the advisors often survive changes in top dogs. Let Machiavelli be your guide. If one is not a member of the ruling class, but is actually part of a minority faction in a pluralistic society, then advocating that everyone be treated equally under the law may guarantee that you will have a maximum amount of personal freedom. Be aware of mitigating power factors at work, like wealth. Of course, the amount of freedom depends upon the laws of the society in which one lives, and we recognize that special interest groups often jostle to get more of the pie through handouts and privileges established via state mechanisms. Satanists know there are no natural rights in the concept of rights require someone or something to be doling them out, and in the past this was usually considered to be some god. The only rights one has are those given by the law of the governmental structure under which you live, and ultimately even these devolve into what you may attain for yourself using whatever personal power you might have. This is why the rich get away with so much more, as their money gives them power and hence more rights in a society ruled by lawyers and not justice. However, if you belong to the ruling class, you might have a very different perspective. It is true that self-identified Satanists are currently a minority in a pluralistic society, but what if they achieved a position of being the ruling class? How would clever self-declared Satanists run a government? What would they advocate? How would they control the masses? This could be a fine question that could be dealt with in a novel of speculative fiction, as it is not likely to happen in reality. But we do know that the people who really understand how to exercise power on the highest of human levels, regardless of whatever philosophy they proclaim as their cover, are actually maintaining their power by behaving in accordance with the true nature of the human species, and are thus de facto Satanists. So some Satanists who are political idealists might envision a fascistic future wherein Satanists are the men behind the curtain, directing the herd to support their own personal indulgences, the herd sacrificing themselves to a ruling, but necessarily hidden, satanic elite. I see this as a political pipe dream, a form of idealism incompatible with the essential pragmatism of Satanism. Running its state would leave little time for personal indulgences and enjoying one's life. As you can see, in contemporary Western society, the only political factions likely to attempt to create a fascistic system, as meant by the original meanings of the terms, are the right-wing fundamentalist fanatical Christians. The film, The Handmaid's Tale, provides a chilling visualization of this possibility. They have the same moral self-righteousness as the Third Reich leaders, and their kind has always found scapegoats to burn at the stake. I think it far more productive to advocate a system that guarantees freedom for the exercise of many points of view, so long as it doesn't require me to pay for race rules who want a free ride. We in the administration of the Church of Satan do not control the thoughts of our members, so if some of them want to toy with these political dreams, that is their prerogative, so long as they don't identify them with the aims of the Church of Satan, which are emphatically not political, nor are they idealistic. The Church of Satan has never required anything of its members except that they hold the writings of Anton LaVey as their basis for membership in this organization. We do not try to force our members into some kind of lockstep unity in their personal choices for building on.
Okay, well, clearly, it's like, I don't know, I have a perfect connection, but for some reason, you froze up. Oh, man, this sucks. You were in the middle.
Oh,
no! Okay, you're back.
Are we better?
Yeah.
Wait.
Oh, it started to lock up again.
Hey, turn off the internet up there! Get off your phone!
Yeah, I heard all that. That's okay. You were almost finished, so let me finish it out just to make sure that there's no pauses or anything, and to give you a chance to get a drink of water, because that was a lot you just went through. The Church of Satan has never required anything of its members except that they hold the writings of Anton LaVey as their basis for membership in the organization. We do not try to force our members into some kind of lockstep unity in their personal choices for building upon LaVey's foundation. We thus celebrate an astonishing diversity. There are some perspectives that we hold in common. We champion merit and superior achievement in all spheres, and are the opponents of a society that is a rampant mediocrity. American Satanists tend to define the United States as the world's first satanic republic. Egalitarian types who reject this concept should note that the Founding Fathers did not grant freedom to everyone. It was thought to be a right only for those whom they deemed worthy and capable of intelligent ability to exercise such freedoms, originally excluding people such as slaves and women. Thus, they weren't giving everyone equality. They were advocating freedom for people whom they defined as equals in ability and capability, an important distinction that has been lost on many who want to interpret their wisely constructed governmental structures as being egalitarian and democratic. It was designed as a republic, which suggested that men of reason might need the ability to circumvent poor or repressive decisions that could arise if a majoritarian democracy was installed. That was considered mob rule, which was just as intolerable as being controlled by hereditary monarchs, particularly since the Founding Fathers shared the same low opinion of the masses as that held by we Satanists. So we come round at last to the question, is Satanism fascism? The answer depends upon your definition of that term. If fascism is understood to be the totalitarian system of government enslaving its subjects to serve the state in drab conformity, then the answer is a resounding no. However, if fascism is merely a loose epithet tossed at those who do uphold standards for excellence and human achievement in all areas of endeavor, then we'll wear that as a badge of honor. We, who embrace Satan as our emblem, do not need no stinking good guy badges. I have to congratulate you on reading that entire long essay with no problems.
I stumbled.
I think you did a fantastic job. That was great. I want to straight up just dive in. This had some wonderful questions here near the end that I think are interesting to pontificate on.
Love that word.
As Satanists, what is the ideal? And of course, because we're Satanists, it's individual, and so it's going to differ for everyone. But for you, Aura, what is your ideal form of government?
A sort of equality. That way I can do what I want to do without being subject to a whole bunch of rules and laws. I kind of like America with the democracy and the republic where we can, vote and have a say and try and push things in the way that we want them to go. Definitely don't want a, fascist in the real meaning of what fascism is. I don't want to be told that I have to sacrifice myself for the state. No, thank you. So.
Well, I mean, since you bring it up, I have the definition here of fascism according to Merriam-Webster.
Okay.
And it says, a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized, autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. So on its face, if we just go by the definition of fascism, it seems pretty anti-satanic, with the idea of a nation or a race above the individual, when Satanism champions the individual above all else. However, throughout this essay, Magus Gilmore is suggesting that if the individual Satanist can put themselves in the position of authority, maybe not the leader, but maybe his right or left-hand man or woman, perhaps fascism wouldn't be such a bad way to live for that individual. Just positing the idea that if you can put yourself in a position of power and you can scam the system, what could be wrong with that? So let me ask you, it's very clear from what you just said that it's not your frame, but would you fault a Satanist for, just on yourself, for abusing others in order to put themselves in a position of authority?
No, not really. I mean, technically, abusing others would be not morally correct for me, but again, that's for me. If you can do it and sleep at night, then more power to you.
Right. I do think it's interesting because there's no right or wrong in it, right? I mean, it really does come down straight up to the individual and how they interpret it. I do have, and this is where I always sort of struggle with these ideas. Because I champion the idea of greater rights for the greater number of individuals because that ensures my rights are protected. Mm-hmm. So if it is a very narrow scope of, well, in this particular case, white men named Adam are safe, but everyone else is going to be beaten or murdered or abused or forsaken, I can't help but think that that's because of me, because I'm allowing it to happen. And though I feel no specific love to a greater mass of people, I do have respect for the idea of a larger society because collectively they create things that I enjoy, whether it's a restaurant or a service or mechanics fixing my car, whatever it is the greater world at large that provides those services, not me. And so by abusing them, they're not going to be inclined to do a very good job or any job at all. Or by exterminating them, they simply won't be there to provide that service that I so desperately need.
And you'll have to do it yourself.
Exactly. And so I can't help but wonder, is it even possible at all for any Satanist in any way to truly accept the idea of fascism and hold it within themselves when the reality is you're not only putting yourself above the herd, as it were, but you're also putting yourself above other Satanists, which is fine until the practicality, the pragmatism, as Magus Gilmore references here, comes into play. It's just not a pragmatic way of existing.
I think it could work for a little while.
Yeah.
For a little bit, but not on the long term. Mm-hmm. Lesser magic is used to set your will and get what you want, but on a smaller scale. I don't think you could keep that up on such a mass scale for too much time. And
it is really interesting to me because we do have fascism. What's that?
And I think you'd get lazy.
Yeah. Well, and that I think is probably the biggest deterrent for any Satanist. We're supposed to be productive members of society, not wastrels. Okay, so leaving that side of it, let's go a little reality here because we are seeing some fascistic, is that a word? Groups popping up on both the right and left of the political spectrum right now, which is pretty amazing because you have a group like Antifa who is anti-fascism by name and action, but they were imposing the same strict idea of the collective over the individual as traditional fascists are. So are they just ignoring the fact that it's irony, or are they embracing the fascist name within themselves and just trying to shut down a different political opinion, in your opinion?
I think it's a little bit of ignorance and trying to fight fire with fire. Mm-hmm. That whole, if I can't beat him, join him kind of mentality, but...
Right. I always thought it was interesting because as Satanists, we clearly have people who champion that side of the political spectrum, and we even have ex-members, and I have to make a broad stroke and assume that there are current members who champion that idea, maybe not the group mentality of Antifa, but certainly the results of some of their activities. In the same way, we have Satanists who champion the activities of the Satanic Temple, even though they're not Satanists at all. So it's the results and the actions that they may champion, not necessarily the organization or the structure of the group itself. But at what point is that an individual choice when it's the supporting of a group over an individual? Like how can an individual support any group that focuses on group over individual?
like Magus Gilmore stated, if you're in the ruling class, keeping yourself in the ruling class will become your goal. It will become, your end game, keeping that power. So, the ends justify the means.
I do like what Norman Bloke is saying in the chat room, saying, look at Satanists who try to lord it over others in social media. They end up burning themselves out. It's not sustainable. That's pretty true. And I wonder if it has something to do with political stamina, too. Because you do see a lot more, at least I see a lot more nationalist socialists on the right, where they're okay with socialism for corporations, but they're not for individuals. So they very much champion that fascism idea of a group over an individual. And they do persist, and they last a lot longer than traditionally you do see those on the left who seem to shout and pump their fists a lot louder and quicker. So is it a stamina issue as far as the political parties are concerned? Is it that the right has such a strong foothold, they really don't have to fight and scream as loud, and they know that the other side is going to burn themselves out, so they just sort of take the tortoise view of the race?
Yeah. I kind of see it as a dance. They take their turns. It's the two-headed dragon. It's the same stuff on the same coin, just different sides. Flip it. It'll be heads today, tails tomorrow.
Well, I do want to get into a little bit of the minutia of these issues too, because we can talk about broad scale right and left dichotomies, and as a sort of group think, that means one specific thing. But to the individual, I think it's much more complex than that. And certainly to the individual, if we see ourselves as the ultimate, we're our own gods. We are the champions of great success and miserable failures in our own lives. We are the straight up... My phone is recording everything I'm saying. What the fuck is happening? Did I say Siri at all? That was weird.
You said serious.
Oh, God. You freaking Apple. So on an individual basis, let me just sort of cut to the chase. I am very, I guess, fascist for my own ends. Like, I don't believe in a group outside of myself, but absolutely, if it comes to the survival of my family over the survival of my neighbors, fuck them. Like, every time I will choose, I would pull the trigger if it came down to that A and B, life situation. Absolutely.
And I think that applies to most of us, whether you're Satanist or not.
Yeah.
I think survival is the number one good go-to, reaction. It's about our survival. Only we're honest about it. We're not gonna lie about that. Yes, if it comes down to me and you, I'm choosing me every single time.
Yeah, that's why my wife gets so pissed off during sex. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, and it's a realistic situation until we're faced with a dictator type government that you live in. Authoritarian is the word I was looking for, where your survival is dependent upon going along and being silent because we don't champion martyrs. And though I don't ever really see that as a reality in America, I do definitely accept that that's the reality in a lot of Middle Eastern countries and even Asian countries, where you are forced to go along lest you be called out and murdered for it. And so how could that fit in? How would a Satanist live long term in that? Would they try to, in your opinion, and let's just put you there for a second, would you go along with it in order to find the best life in that area? Or would you rather do that until you could get the fuck out? I
would do that until I could find a way out. whether that was, moving from the country, climbing up the ladder. Yes, I would definitely don that hat, put on that costume. That's what lesser
rock
magic
that
is
burqa.
about. Huh?
You'd rock that burqa.
I would. And I would secretly be making plans to get the fuck out of Dodge, because, no.
And I always find it interesting because you do run across those Satanists that are like, well, if I was in, an Islam-controlled country, let's just say Saudi Arabia, of course I would never come out and say, I don't believe in what you believe in. I'm a Satanist and I'm an individual and independent. But I would also not be able to live with myself living within that system because it is antithetical to everything that I am. And so it seems like the only recourse would be to get out as quickly and safely as possible instead of trying to live within that.
And that is true. I wouldn't want to live like that for long term, but I would go along with it if that meant the safety of myself, my family. That's where the pragmatism comes in, and being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I would not want to live in a society like that, but if I was forced to, I would do everything I could to get out of it while living under the radar so I didn't draw attention to myself or my family.
Yeah. What do you think the realistic side of that is? Because we know that as Satanists, we keep it under the nose, or we keep the Baphomet tucked when we're around so specific people. What if you were a first phaser in like an Islamic controlled country? You'd be fucked.
Oh man, yeah, you would.
And maybe because they were raised in that environment, it wouldn't be as big of an issue. But in a Western society, first phasers are like shouting from the rooftops. There's no way they could keep it under their chin, under their nose. I mean, they'd be fucked. So do you think, because depending on how you look at our Western society, we do have very similar ideas to fascism, whether it's a religiously controlled regime, as America is purported to be, or it's a corporate controlled regime, as America literally is. How far do you think we would have to go as a Western society before it's straight up fascism? And is patriotism different?
Okay, so let's start with, I don't think we'd have that far of a jump, especially with the Republicans securing as many seats as they have. That is their end goal, to make America Christian. But it's also, President Trump is building his America, and it's for the 1%. It's for the people who go along with what he wants. I don't think it's intentional necessarily, just what he can get the most out of. And is it patriotic? No and yes. There are a lot of people who don't know and don't want to know, don't want to educate themselves. So, taking the knee is slapping our country in the face when it was our rights to do with what we want under the democratic shift that we have. Yeah, it's just a hot mess.
Hot mess. That's a really great way of looking at it. It is a straight up hot mess. And I always find it interesting because if patriotism is defined in the way that some see it, then it's championing and backing whoever is in office at that moment, because they are the representative of the democracy that we are a patriot of. And on the other side of that, the way I see it is a patriot is backing the ideals of the whatever, in this case, nation, and that is in stark contrast to some, depending on who's in power. So
that's the way it's supposed to be, but that's not how a lot of people look at it.
Right.
Especially when you get into rural America.
So at what point does patriotism and fascism cross over, or do they ever? Because both, one is in the support of an individual or a group over an individual, and the other is ideals over an individual. Patriots are known for sacrificing themselves for the greater ideal of their nation, and fascists have no problem murdering others for their greater organization or group. So there's a similar vein in both, right?
Well, yeah, but there's a similar vein in both when it comes to religion as well. Mm-hmm. Which is why you'll see the most patriotic, and not the idealistic patriot, but the one that we see standing on their porch with their gun and their flag and no teeth. They're the ones you'll see. They're the ones that are screaming the loudest, and it's all the same. It's no different than religion, fascism, communism, any real singular religious where you have not religious political platform where you have the ruling class and then everybody else. It's all the same. It's all the same, and it's all about control.
So as there's a question in here that my terrible memory can't recall if we had already brought it up or not. So let me know if I'm just retreading here. That Magus Gilmore asks, what would a Satanist perfect religion, I'm sorry, political structure be? And you had mentioned early on that you thought it was a sort of democratic republic that we have now. And I don't know, because we seem to be going backwards, and we are in a democratic republic. So if we are, from a progressive stance, moving in reverse, and we are from an environmentally conscious stance moving in reverse, and we are from a individual liberty stance moving in reverse, and we're championing more of the groupthink over actual citizens, that does seem in stark contrast to the democratic republic, and yet within the construct, that is the result. So in the same way that communism is impossible because human beings themselves are not truly capable of opening their arms wide and accepting everyone as equals, is a representative democracy the same? Just an impossible dream?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's we had some decent success with it up until recently. Mm-hmm.
But again, it's usually, like 40% of the country that no matter who's in charge is feeling or literally being shit on. Whether it's you're making me not be overtly racist, or I'm getting to be overtly racist, depending on who's in the position of authority. And that's just one example of every single issue, each side of the same issue. So
mm-hmm.
If the greater good isn't ever good, because there's always going to be someone on the other side.
It's not good for everybody.
Yeah.
It really isn't. That is a lie we're telling, that everybody can have everybody's going to be happy with the outcome of this. I think if we have a society based on equal opportunity rather than equal outcome, it will benefit the majority. I like the idea of equality as far as opportunity goes. That's give me enough rope to either build a ladder and climb to the top, or tie a noose and hang myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I tell you, I will build a ladder. I want equal opportunity, not equal outcome. That's ridiculous. Magus Gilmore speaks about it. Art, the biggest and best example. You've got people now who can just splash a bit of paint on a canvas and call it, a Rembrandt. It's not the same. We do need to be judgmental and critique everything. That way we get the best out of it. But when people are talking about equality these days, they're asking for equal outcome. I want the same as this person. I put in 10%, he puts in 90%, but I deserve the same. Why am I not getting the same? Well, you're not putting in the same amount of work. Well, it's just because of my color, or my skin, or my gender, or my sexual preference, or my eye color. They want everything to be equal across the board, and it's not going to happen. Even if we were to try, like with communism, it's not going to work that way. But having equal outcome, equal opportunity. That's what I would like to see. And I think that a society where we can, secular society would be nice. And for the most part, we have that. I see it not taking much for it to go downhill fast. And we have taken quite a few steps backwards. We'll get back there, I believe we will. We'll get back there in a more happy medium where, there's not so much, God, the divide is great. Right. It is such a deep divide, and anybody who's in the middle is kind of fucked.
Yeah, we straight up are. Well, I say we, I am in the middle for sure. Yeah, and I'm in the same frame of mind. Like I don't mind equality of opportunity. I don't like the expectation of equality in all. And just because the truth is not everyone is equal, not chemically as human beings, not genetically as human beings, and environmentally we're not equal. Some people are born in deep desert Africa, and some people are born in LA, where you can pretty much go and do anything and wear anything and have no issue. The idea of equality is such an abstract one that I think as human beings, we have to learn to apply it. Understanding that we are always going to be slaves in some form or another to our own innate biases. And those biases are going to be instilled in us, not only from the society we live in, our parents who raised us or whomever raised us, whatever group we came up around, the nation in which we live, the religion, the dominant religion or the lack thereof, the political systems that rule that space or don't. We will always have biases, and so we will always look down on something, but that is a uniquely human thing. We are tribal by instinct, and it was a survival instinct that we had to be tribal for the majority of our evolution. And we are just sort of stuck with that nowadays, trying to find some other way of existing that benefits us individually, but also and it seems to be a greater idea that is pushed forward through society, not punishing anyone else throughout our own advancement. The realities of that are challenging because they're just can't always happen. But we always, as a species, have gone, ultimately, we've had roadblocks to a more progressive political, social, and economic side of things. Well, maybe not economic, because we've always struggled with that in America. When it comes to the fascism question, I would say no matter how you look at it, unless it's a survival issue, and then it's not real, it's just, we have to put ourselves in that position. It's absolutely antithetical to Satanism by definition and through action. But I do think it's a fantastic question to posit, and it's a fantastic idea to try to frame in our own lives. Not only is it going to educate us a little bit about how we perceive the world, and maybe in good or bad ways, and it can also inform us of how to become better versions of ourselves, regardless of others, just by questioning what fascism means. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss in this?
No, I think you covered most of it, and we covered most of it. I think it's fascism as the original term to us. We're not collectivists, we're individuals, and we champion that individuality. But when it comes to our ability to judge and critique and hold each other to higher standards, if that is where we're at, like Magus Gilmore said, then I will wear that black hat. I expect not perfection, but I have high expectations of my family and myself, and will hold them to it, hold myself to it, hold the people I associate to it. Equality in equal outcome is bullshit. Yeah.
Well, I think
if that makes me racist, if that makes me biased, if that makes me
you're an ist.
Sexist. Okay, so be it.
Right.
It's okay. I'm okay with that.
I think just by way of closing down the discussion, Lauren had a really wonderful statement here. Hurricane relief efforts, animal welfare facilities, people escaping war-torn countries, looking out for my best self doesn't mean I can't also want others to succeed. Just me first. I dig that.
Yeah.
I can sign off on that. Ara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I don't know why I said us, because it's just me, but thank you for reading that.
No, we are not alone. We've got
That's true. That's true. I'm speaking on behalf of everyone else. Thank you for the reading and for your insights. I think everyone is going to come to their own conclusion, as they should, but having the discussion is incredibly important, I think. So it's been wonderful. And for all of you... Oh, yeah, my pleasure. For everyone watching now and after the fact, hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you guys think. You can reply to the email chain not email chain, but the Patreon post feed chain, or just send me an email. I'm curious, or just put it in the discussion bit below. This isn't public. This is patron only type stuff. So your thoughts and ideas will be exclusively here. I'm curious, does fascism have a place in Satanism? So... thank you all again. Thank you, Ara. You're beautiful. We will chat again. Hail Satan, everyone.
Satan.